On today's What Do We Do podcast, we're joined by the hottest coach in college basketball today, Oakland University's Greg Kampe. Coach Kampe is in studio to share his version on beating Kentucky in the 2024 NCAA tournament. He's also going to drop his knowledge on what it takes to win at the high school level, the college level, the pro level, and even winning at life. It's going to be a great show, so hit the subscribe button, give us a follow, and let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the What Do We Do podcast. This is season 4, and this is number 103. And this is another guest episode. And those are episodes where we bring on a leader in the community who has a story to tell, knowledge to share, and advice to give. And then we have them come on into the studio to share their experiences and life knowledge with all of us. Because as a team, together, everyone achieves more. And today's guest, I am so excited to have here in studio. He really needs no introduction, but I'm going to give you just a few moments of his life that are relevant to right now. Coach Greg Charles Kampe is the head men's basketball coach at Oakland University, and he is the longest tenured head coach in Division I men's basketball, and he'll be starting his 41st season this fall. That's amazing. But almost just as amazing is how David slayed Goliath just recently in the NCAA March Madness men's basketball tournament, where Coach Campy and his Oakland Grizzlies took down the number 3 seed Kentucky Wildcats and their head coach, Calipari. Coach Campy, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
I'm very happy to be here. I've never been introduced Greg Charles Kampe before. My mom would have been happy to hear that.
Did I get it right? Is that right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's the first time I've ever heard that. So that's pretty cool, Dewey.
All right.
She would have loved it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know that you actually lost her not too long ago, and she was, the light of your life. And I was at an event you were at a few years back, and it had happened recently. So again, my thoughts are still with you at this time always. And I'm glad we could give a little sparkle to your eye that way. Well, we're going to jump right on into it, Coach. And on the What Do We Do podcast, we always start with a game we like to play called High-Low, okay? And what that means is I'd like to know, on behalf of our audience, what is the high point of your coaching career at OU and the low point?
That's a heck of a question. I get asked that a lot. And obviously the last few months have changed everything. So just a little bit about me. My father played football at the University of Michigan. Won the national championship. He was on the 1947 team. My brother played for Bo for 5 years in the early 70s. And I grew up, the first word I ever said in my life was Michigan after Bob Ufer. And so I grew up in that football stadium every Saturday my whole life until I actually got to college. So the University of Michigan was really, really special. So in 2000, whatever, when we played Michigan as a Division I school and we beat them, that to me would have always been the highlight of my coaching career at Michigan, because I think it would have meant so much to my father, who had passed away and didn't get to see it, but I know what it would have meant to him. So that was always the thing that I cling to as a highlight, because we've won, we've won a lot of championships. I have more championship rings than I have fingers. So, to just signal one of those out would be hard to do. But I will say that the win over Kentucky jumped everything. To see our fan base, to see, 7,000 to 10,000 people migrate to Pittsburgh for that game. The North Carolina State game after we beat Kentucky was even more people. To see the joy and the happiness of all our fans and the way that we captured the Detroit media and the state of Michigan, and the congratulations and how happy I am that that I've heard from people. How can that not be the highlight of my career here at Oakland, the 40 years that I've been here? As far as a low life, the lows are always, as a coach, you live in the lows. You really don't enjoy the wins. And I think after you retire, maybe you enjoy them. But whenever you win a game, all that does is make the next one more important. And a perfect example is we win Kentucky and the world's, enjoying that. And I'm worried about North Carolina State. And we end up losing to North Carolina State in overtime, had the ball tied with less than 10 seconds to go and didn't get a shot off. If we win that game, we're 10 seconds from the Sweet 16, and North Carolina State went to the Final Four. So probably the combination of the win over Kentucky and the loss to NC State would probably be the lowest moment of my coaching career. There's one that equals it probably, and that's in 2016. Michigan State was #1 in the country. I had a great team that year. And we played them in the Palace of Auburn Hills in front of 20-some thousand people. It was the largest crowd in the history of Auburn Hills in the Palace. And the Palace is gone now, so it'll always be the most watched basketball game in that venue. It ended up being the #1 watch game on ESPNU all year as far as ratings go. And Kay Felder, my great point guard, had a shot at the buzzer. 4 seconds to go. The ball rolled around the rim. It looked like it was in, and it fell off. And we went to overtime and lost that game too. And so I think if we'd have beaten Michigan State when they were ranked #1 in the country, I think it would have completely changed the profile of our program. So that and the NC State overtime loss, those are probably the two lowest moments I've ever had as a coach.
All right, Coach. So you're telling me that prior to this season, which then had a super high and a super low, which I would still tell you was a great season, and I wouldn't call that a low, but I hear you. That Michigan beating the Wolverines would have been your high, and then losing to your friend Tom Izzo at the buzzer with a runaround that didn't go in, and then the overtime loss, that would have been your low. Those would have been Michigan State bookends. But now you're saying everything's 2024?
Well, I think so because, we live in the state of Michigan, right? I have my whole career here. And so Michigan State are, we're chasing Michigan State all the time. Our fans are always chasing Michigan and Michigan State. We want to beat our chest, and say we are equal with you. That's never going to happen, but we're going to, like you say, you chase perfection knowing you're never going to catch it. Well, we're chasing that knowing we're probably never going to catch it. But yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night and dreaming of that Michigan State game and seeing that ball go in and it just would have changed our program. I mean, I'd have a practice facility now probably. We wouldn't be in the Horizon League. We'd probably be in a different league. I mean, just one little thing, just like the Kentucky game has changed the lives of my players this year. Jack Golke, his whole life is going to be changed because of one game. The Michigan State game could have changed our program.
We'll move on to, I have some good news though for you. You did have a great year. And you won the Horizon League, then you won the Horizon League tournament, and that was the first time ever, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we've been in the NCAA tournament before, but since we've been in the Horizon League, we had not won the Horizon Conference tournament in the 10 years we were in the league. So we got that monkey off our back too.
So you got that monkey off your back. So you automatically qualified for the NCAA tournament through the regular season, but then again, put a stamp on it in the tournament, right? So then you got the draw on Selection Sunday against your really good friend, Coach Calipari.
Well, our conference tournament game was at 7 o'clock. They usually last 2 hours. So the game ended. I went and did my press conference. I came back to the locker room and I grabbed my bag and my phone and I looked at my phone and there were like 580 messages on it. And so I checked them and I scrolled back to 9 o'clock. And at 9:04, there was a text from Cal that said, "Congratulations, I watched the second half, awesome." And I texted him, "Thanks, we'll probably end up, drawing you." And he wrote back, "No way, that's never going to happen." So Selection Sunday comes, of course, Oakland, Kentucky. I go up on stage, we had about 2,000 people show up to the arena for the Selection Sunday show, which I thought was really, really cool. And so I talked to the arena. I went on my way to the media. I just grabbed my phone and I looked, and he had tried to call me. I called him real quick, and how did this happen? Because he had said, "There's no way this can happen." So we laughed about it. We talked about, it's a chance to talk about each other, which is kind of cool in the media. He got to talk about my friendship. I got to talk about his. And then about 2 days before the game, we didn't talk. We didn't say anything. I shook his hand before the game, and then after the game, I knew the blowback that the Big Blue Nation was going to have, losing to a school they never heard of, right? And so when I shook his hand after the game, I was speechless. And you know me, Dewey, it's not very often, like you, very often that we're speechless in life. And I have no idea what he said to me because I was kind of in a fog that we'd won that game. And so, I shook all the hands. I went and did the CBS thing. Then I go into the media room, and I do all that in the media room. And as I'm coming out of the media room, in the back hallways, John's coming down, and he's probably got 50 media people around him just banging him with questions. And he sees me, and he goes like this, and I walk over, and we walked away from the media, and he put his arm around me. And I looked up at him, because he's a little taller than I am, and I said, "Hey, Coach, I didn't know what to say to you after the game, man. I apologize." And he goes, "Oh, no, don't worry about that." He goes, "Look, you guys were the better team tonight. You deserve to win. You go enjoy it, go say what you got to say, and don't worry about me. I'll be okay." That's the type of guy that man is. He's just a really, really good person. At his worst, he was still his best.
That's fantastic. And we'll talk a little bit more about that game and the season, but I'm trying to, again, get those lows back to highs, okay? And so we know the next round, what happened, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But just yesterday, okay, and this will be dropped in a week. So a week ago, you won a national championship, and it actually wasn't your first national championship, but it's something that's near and dear to me, and I think to you as well. But for the Detroit Athletic Club here in Detroit, Michigan, we have a basketball program, and we participate every year in the Private Athletic Club National Basketball Tournament, known as the NACAT. It was hosted here in town. And again, just yesterday, you coached our men's 35 and older team, and you won the championship. So congratulations. You got a national championship this year, the Natty, and I'm so proud of you and my teammates and friends over there at the DAC.
Yeah, it was awesome, Dewey. It was awesome. And Jonathan Jones, the point guard, played for me, 13, 14 years ago, he won conference championships for me. He took Oakland to the NCAA tournament, and he now took the DAC to the national title, and I got to ride along. He's made me look good a lot, so it was really, really a lot of fun. And to see a group of older guys still playing, still competing at the national level, we beat the Washington club for the championship. We beat a team from Fort Worth. We beat a team from, I think it was Oklahoma. I don't remember, but we beat teams from all over the country, and to win that national championship here in Detroit was really a cool thing.
And there's 2 games a day, and it's college rules and college clock and all that. So I played on the older team, the 45 and older. Don't tell everybody I'm a little bit older than those guys. But Jonathan Jones, JJ, the rest of those guys are amazing. That was a sweet run. Little shout out to the club, our A team, the younger big time ballers, those that still got it totally. They also won the first championship for the DAC in that division. So we got 2 first time championships. So go DAC Deltas. But a few years back, you came in and you coached our ladies team, and you won a championship for our ladies, and that was the first one ever. Maybe talk about that for a quick second, if you don't mind.
Well, the DAC has 3 national champions, and I got to coach 2 of them. So I want to hold that, when I go over to the club and we go up to the cigar bar and have a few cigars, that might come out a few times.
4, because the ladies won before. So the ladies won this yesterday
I didn't
also.
know that. Oh,
yeah, they won yesterday as well. And so we have 4.
No, you're right, 4.
Yeah,
and I've been involved in 2. You're
exactly so you've
right,
won
4.
you've won coaching the ladies.
Right.
You've won coaching the 35 and older men.
Right.
And you're going to win whatever team I'm on in the future. We're going to recruit you to coach that team for us and help me get on that board as well. Okay.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Let's do that, my friend. All right. Well, let's get back to this amazing season at Oakland University. With the season itself, you had a great regular season. You started, I don't know if it was the first game was against Ohio State, and you might have almost beat them. You went to Xavier, you did a couple of things, but talk about again, with your team and in this day and age, I don't want to get into the weeds with NIL and all that quite yet, but just again, how this season went with the climax into the NCAA tournament.
Right. Well, your team comes on campus in late June, and you begin your preparation in June, and it's very laid back in the summer, limited hours, but you're starting to teach and you're starting to get your team in. And I knew that we had a chance to be pretty good. In this age where they come and they go, You really don't know until you get through the summer. And I thought we had a chance to be pretty good. We opened the season in an exhibition game. We lose to a Division II team, and our fans were really upset about that. I was glad it happened. I've got their attention then. But, when you play an exhibition game, you don't really run anything offensively. You just go out and let them play, and you're just trying to get them in game shape and things like that. You're not really, we didn't scout the team. We didn't do all the advanced scouting and stuff that you do for real games. So our fan base was not real happy that we lost to a non-D1 team. And then we opened the season at Ohio State. We lead for 34 minutes. Jack Golke's got the ball in his hands with a minute to go, and he gets killed. And they don't call the foul, and the ball goes out of bounds, and they give it to Ohio State. It's a 1-point game, and they make a 3 on the inbounds play to beat us. They go up 4 with a minute to go, and then we had the foul, So I walked away from there feeling pretty good that, I wasn't happy that we lost the game and the way it ended, but I felt we had a chance to be pretty good. But having done this for a real long time, you know that any team on a given night can play with anybody, right? How good are you? Can you come back and do it again? And you got to prove it more than one night. Maybe you had a night where you made things. Maybe the other team had their bad night. So 3 nights later, we played at Illinois, and obviously, they were an Elite 8 team. And playing at Illinois is one of the hardest places to play in the country. Their fan base is fantastic. It's like playing in Breslin, the Arizona. I think Illinois and Michigan State are 2 of the top 10 hardest places to play. And we're tied with 5 minutes to go in the game. And so we did it back to back. We only scored, I think, 3 points the last 5 minutes, and we lost. But to play that way back to back, I knew this is going to be a really good team. And 3 weeks later, we went to Xavier, and we won at Xavier. And same kind of game. This time we learned from our mistakes in the Ohio State and Illinois game, figured it out, won the game. Not many teams go to the Cintas Center at Xavier and win, especially non-league games. And so we beat a Big East team. We 2 tough losses to Big Ten teams. We were on our way. I knew we had a chance to be really good. We went through our league, won the league outright title, and then in the tournament, tournaments are hard to win, and we found a way to win it. Very, very few. There were 32 conference championships in the country this year. 32 conferences, so the 32 regular season champions, only 9 of the 32 won their tournament too. And so I felt pretty proud of our team. I knew we had a really good team.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I followed you all season long, as you know, being a friend and a fan. And I saw you say that repeatedly, but I was also like, I don't know, like, does he just say this all the time? And, when are you going to say, oh, my team's not that good, this is not going to be good? So I was pulling for you, and obviously it worked itself out. A funny part, though, which we'll talk about for all those UD Mercy fans and alumni out there, was I went to the game that I think was to wrap up the league championship. And UDM did not have a good year this year. They might have had like 1 win the whole year, maybe 2 or something. And you just had to beat them to win the league championship, if I'm not mistaken. And then it was like tied game with like 2 or 3 minutes to go, maybe 5 minutes. Right?
So they went 1-31, I think, right? And thank God they got the win. We knew all along we were playing them the last day of the season. It would probably mean we had won the title already, but to win it outright, we had to beat them. We had won the title, and we were gonna be the #1 seed. But if they beat us, Youngstown would have gotten a piece of the title too. And so, there was a ton of pressure on us, and they were playing, fearless, and they played a hell of a game. And Townsend scored a basket with maybe 37 seconds. I think we were up 1 or 2 with the ball, and his basket made it a 2-possession game, and we were able to hang on and win. And that was a very scary moment, and especially when it's your arch rival, and we've pretty much had our way in the series over the last 11 years. I think we're 20-3 or something like that against them, maybe 21-3 or some gaudy number like that. So here it was. They could get it all back by keeping us from being and they weren't as. I mean, they had a tough year numbers-wise, but they weren't as bad as those numbers said, and we knew that going in, and they played a heck of a game.
Well, they did, and I was like, here we go. They're going to upset you on your home court. And again, I happened to be there with my kids, And I was going to say, oh no, coach is never going to let me come again. It's going to be my fault. He's going to blame it on the Steffen, team Steffen. But you pulled it out. It was great. It was exciting. And I think because it was so close, but then to come out on top, last game of the regular season, et cetera, the fans in the building and just the whole experience, I think gave it a little extra energy at the end, which, the adrenaline was flowing. It was great.
Well, that's what home court's about. That's why when, like I said, the Illinois game, the Ohio State game, hard to win on the road in the last minute of a close game. It's very, very difficult to do, and we had chances in those games. We didn't do it, but we learned from those, and we handled it at Xavier. And probably all the lessons we learned allowed us to hold on at Oakland against Detroit that night.
And then that pushed you into the tournament, which got you into the NCAA tournament to win that game against Kentucky, and boom, boom, boom. So we're going to talk about the 2024-25 season here in a moment. But before we move forward, we're going to go backward. So we're going to go back to your roots. This podcast, Coach, is all about community, okay? And we just talked about the community of the DAC. We talked about the community of Metro Detroit and your team. But now we're going to talk about the community of the youth, okay? This segment right now is going to be about, your upbringing, how you played high school sports, how you played college sports. Let's talk about you growing up in Defiance, Ohio, going to Defiance High School, and talk about playing sports in those days. You didn't just focus on one sport. You got to play your fall sport, your winter sport, your spring sport, and then maybe just give our younger audience out there kind of, how it was back then, and they'll relate to how it is today.
I grew up in Defiance, Ohio. As you said, it's a community located halfway between Toledo, Ohio, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. So it's in Northwest Ohio. It was the hub of farmland. And what I mean by that is we had the grocery store in town. And so every Saturday the town grew because we had Hicksville and Ney and Fairview and Tenora and all the little surrounding communities, Ayresville, names that you would expect. The Hicksville Aces, right? That high school was the Hicksville Aces. So all those people would come into the Chief Supermarket on Saturday. That gives you an idea of, farmland, northern Ohio. Just an unbelievable childhood. Blessed to have great parents, 3 siblings, just the American dream of the 50s and 60s, right? That I lived that. And the high school was, we weren't very good in football. We were great in basketball, and we were great in track. And I actually, in high school, played football for 1 year. He transferred in his senior year with Dave Preston, who had a 15-year NFL career. He and I played together in college, too. We both went to Bowling Green and played together in college. But, we had some really good players around. But it was when we played a basketball game, Dewey, the gym sat 3,200, and there were 3,200 there every Friday night. When we played a football game, we had 5,000 seats, and there were probably 5,000 people there every Friday night. It was the thing to do in the community. When we played at Napoleon down the road 30 minutes, the whole town would bunker up and get in their trucks and drive to Napoleon for the game. It was the American dream growing up. I was very, very fortunate.
So how did that go from what sports? Let's talk a little bit again, quick, but let's count them. The sports you played in high school, what you excelled at, and ultimately, again, this is for all you high school juniors and seniors out there. You then went on to Bowling Green, where you were not just a one sport D1 athlete, but 2-sport D1 athlete, if I'm not mistaken. So again, for all the student athletes out there, let's talk about junior year, senior year, and then transitioning to college. And it's different today for sure, but let's just give them some kind of roadmap to, what they might expect and how it goes.
Well, it's 50 years ago. We're having our 50th anniversary this summer. I'm actually speaking at Defiance High School on Wednesday of this week to their senior graduating class. So 50 years, but I was a football player, quarterback in high school. I played defensive back. I also was a punter and kicker, so I kicked off and punted. And I was fortunate enough to get into the High School Football Hall of Fame. And I think it's not because I was that great of a player. It's because I think I represented the small town football player. I played my senior year in high school, I played every down of every game. I was the punter, the kicker, the punt returner, the kick returner, the quarterback, the safety. And I think I got that honor because it was more, the signifying who this is, the culture of high school football.
Hold on. For everyone out there who's listening in Podcast Nation or watching in YouTube land, you just said that you're in the High School Football Hall of Fame and you played every down. Did you say just your senior season or whatever? Okay, well, again, every down, playing all these different positions. You're a basketball guy, Coach. Okay, you're not even, no disrespect, that you probably were a little skinnier back then and you're a shorter guy playing a little basketball, point guard, okay, this and that and the other. But you're telling me that you're a big, bad football player who now knows basketball?
I don't know how big or bad I am, but I did the Hall of Fame class. Peyton Manning and Archie Manning were in it. Archie Griffin was in it. What was the Oklahoma running back? Dupree. Marcus Dupree was in that class. Bernie Kosar. So it was a pretty. I'm sitting there around all these people in the induction, wondering how did I get here. So yeah, that was probably one of the highlights of my athletic career, was being inducted in there. So I was a much better football player probably than I was a basketball player. But I also played basketball in high school. I was all-state.
Point guard?
Point guard, yeah.
Okay.
We used to call Defiance the point guard capital of the world because there were 2 or 3 back in those days, really good point guards that came out. And then probably the thing I excelled the most in was track. And I was actually offered a scholarship at the University of Kentucky. They wanted to make me a decathlete, but I could not. There was no way I could pole vault. I tried to learn it, but I couldn't do it. But like, I ran a 2 mile in 8 something. I ran the mile in 4:26. I ran the half mile in, back in those days it was miles, not meters. I ran the half mile in just under minute 58 or something. I ran the 4:40 in 47. I ran the 100 in 10:4 or 10:6, something like that. I ran the, I long jumped 23 feet. I high jumped 6'6", if you can believe that. I finished 8th in the state in the high jump my senior year. So I was a little guy that could, the jack all trades, probably master of none, right? I kicked, I punted, I could do pretty much everything. I wasn't that great at anything. Although, my football career was pretty good. I think I had pretty good football.
So I'm going to say you had to be pretty good because you got a D1 scholarship to go to Bowling Green, correct?
Yeah, and I had a very, very good career at Bowling Green. I started for 3 years. I was the punter for 3 years. I kicked off. And then I did sign with the Seattle Seahawks as a free agent out of Bowling Green. 1978, I signed with the Seahawks. I never went though.
How come?
Because I got offered a job as an assistant coach at the University of Toledo in basketball. And Bob Nichols, the basketball coach, I went into his office and I said, "Hey, Coach, I've got this chance." Now, you got to remember this. This is 1978, okay?
Star Wars just came out.
Yeah, a defensive, first of all, there weren't a lot of white 5'8", 5'9" defensive backs in the NFL. But my agent really firmly believed I had a chance to make it because in those days, the roster, I think it was 40 players, maybe 43 players. It was a really low number, the amount of people that could be on the NFL football team. I think it's 53 now, and then a taxi squad, but it was like 42 or some number back in the 70s. And because I could do all those other things, I was a quarterback. I could be the third string quarterback. I could be a wide receiver. I could be this. I could be the backup punter. I could be the backup kicker. I wasn't good enough to be the starter at any of those positions, but he believed I would make the team because I could do all that. And then 3 years later, I'm watching an NFL game, and a guy by the name of Tom Moriarty comes on TV. He's playing for the Atlanta Falcons. And I looked at it, and Tom Moriarty backed me up at Bowling Green. So the fact that the guy that played behind me was playing in the NFL. Now, he was a lot faster than I was and a lot bigger, so maybe he fit the NFL better than I did. But it made me wonder, was I making a mistake? But I will say this, okay? I think the contract was like for $20,000. The NFL, a defensive back in the I can't remember exactly. I don't know the exact number, but I know it wasn't. Today, there wouldn't have been a question. Do I take the job at the University of Toledo? Hard job to get. the Toledo had a coaching legend by the name of Bob Nichols offered me a job, or do I go, try out where I really didn't think I had a chance to make it.
Well, today it would have been totally different, Coach. We'll go have a cigar sometime and talk about that. Now that I know that, we'll talk for hours because you could have had NIL coming all the types of ways. You would have been set for life before you even decided Seahawks or coaching at Toledo.
But a rookie contract in the NFL, I don't know what it is, but I gotta believe it's over $500 million. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Gotta be close to that. I know what it is in the NBA. I don't know the NFL, but I chose to coach basketball because I got that job offer.
But how much was that versus the 20,000 you could have got on the practice squad or the Seattle Seahawks squad?
My first job at the University of Toledo, I got $9,500 and a car.
Okay.
I'll never forget that. I started at Oakland University as a head coach at a Division II scholarship giving school for $29,500.
So
think about that.
Yeah. No, I get it, right? The times have changed. The times have changed. So you spent, am I right, 4 years at Toledo or 6 years?
6 years as an assistant at Toledo. I'm sitting at my desk. The baseball coach at Toledo walks in and says, "Hey, we played a school yesterday and their basketball head coaching job's open. I think they'd go after a young guy. You should go look at it." And I looked up at him and I said, "Where?" He goes, "Oakland University." I'm in Toledo at the time, and I said to him, "I'm moving to California now." And he goes, No, it's right up outside of Michigan. I mean, we just played up there. It's a really nice campus, So I got in my car the next day. I drove around campus, and decided to apply for the job.
And just got it like that? Were there some interviews?
No, I didn't get it like that. I don't think they wanted to hire me, but the funny thing is they offered the job to Dick Bennett. Now, you have to be a real basketball fan or older to remember the name. Dick Bennett was the head coach at that time at Wisconsin Stevens Point, won the Division III national championship. He turned it down, and they offered it to me. Dick went on and became the coach at Wisconsin. And I got to Michigan State beat Wisconsin in the Final Four, maybe in the early 2000s. And that was Dick Bennett coaching that team. So Dick made the right choice to go to stay there and then get the Wisconsin job. And I think I made the right choice to.
And talking about this, I'm going to give a shout out to our good friend, Jack Brusewitz. As we were talking about you, he's got a little backstory on you here, and there's some, he knows you from, decades past or whatnot. And so, we were kind of talking about you and getting that job. And again, what made you think that you were qualified to take on that head coaching job at that time? And what do you think Oakland University and their athletic director or whoever made the hire at that time? He has his ideas. I have a little bit of a less idea, but let's hear it from you.
Well, I was the cockiest, believed in myself probably. I mean, when you're my size and you're playing Division I football, you probably better believe in yourself, right? So maybe I was over the top of it. I believed highly in myself in those days. Coaching for 40 years as a head coach, you get all that knocked out of you. But I thought I was going to go to Oakland, win the national championship my first 2 years, and then I'd be the coach at UCLA. So I took the job thinking, I'll make this the greatest job in the country.
And again, that's kind of, what he had alluded to, that you had originally thought it would be a stepping stone. And I guess maybe there's some success at Toledo. And then when you got to OU, didn't you have some success like right away as well?
Well, not
major
success, because it was success because they had been so bad.
Okay.
They never had a winning season in the history of their basketball had only been around for 14 years. And they had a winning season, but not within league play. They played a bunch of crappy teams so they could win in the regular, but they'd never had a winning season in league play. And in our third year, we won 20 games. And I thought I was going to do it in the first year, though, man. I thought we'd win the national. I thought it didn't matter if the players weren't any good. I can coach them, right? And then I found out that it isn't the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes, right? And found out you got to have good players. And been able to get a lot of good players since then. And they've made me look pretty good.
Yeah, and that's what I think I was thinking of as the 20-win season, the third year. I mean, that's a remarkable turnaround. I guess maybe you wanted it year one, but I'm assuming the school and just kind of, so, I mean, what are you, close to 30 years old only and on your way type of thing. So what made you stick around? Again, whether it's last week not taking the offer that you got to go coach at North Carolina or University of Michigan, and I'm obviously teasing a little bit, but what made you not jump ship ever and stick around? And then we'll talk, about those last 40 years.
So I had a lot of offers, but none of them were the life-changing offer. $3 million a year, $2 million a year, the Power 5 job. I've never been offered a Power 5 job. Even after we just beat Kentucky and they were all open. No, nobody called me and asked me, And so it's I don't want to be hypocritical in saying, yes, I've loved it and I've been, because if I would have gotten a life-changing job, I probably would have taken it. But I was offered a bunch of jobs that were the next step jobs, Missouri Valley, Atlantic 10 or something like that. And I never took them. Probably the highest paying, best job that I was ever offered that I turned down was I got offered a job in the NBA as an assistant coach in the NBA. Jack McCluskey had been with the Pistons for years, and he went to Minnesota, and he asked me to when he was hiring a Minnesota coach, he said that I want to hire you as an assistant. And I thought long and hard about it and ended up not doing it. And
well, let's talk about that, because again, I think the easy route would be to take that because I'm assuming there's more money, and I'm assuming it's a new challenge. I'm also assuming in many regards it's less pressure. Again, maybe I'm missing something there, and I don't know exactly what age you were and what was going on in your life, but at some point you're kind of like, you know what? I'm at the top. I am just going to go get that money, that, the pro deal. So why did you stick around again to deal with, again, board of trustees, college kids? It's different now. Maybe you would take that job now, but kind of talk about that.
Well, I talked to a lot of people. Brendan Malone, Mike Malone, his son, who coaches, and unfortunately they got beat last night, but he won the world championship last year. Mike Malone for the Denver Nuggets, I gave him his first job. He was my assistant 35 years ago. And so his father, who asked me to hire him, I was a friend. I talked to him. I talked to others. The reason that I didn't take the assistant job was Jack McCluskey was at the end of his career. And in the NBA, you're kind of, until you make the name for yourself, you're kind of, stuck to people that, the only reason I would have gotten the job was because of Jack and our relationship, that because of the Pistons practicing at Oakland at those days and that. And so Jack had maybe 2-3 years left and he was done. And so I wasn't going to give up being a head coach to go be an assistant for 1 or 2 years and then be out of a job. The Timberwolves were, not the Timberwolves of today. They were down at the bottom, and the coach that became the head coach at that time didn't last very long.
Can I say they were the Pistons of today?
I can't say things.
I'll say that, okay? Everyone out there, Pistons, let's get it together, okay? I'll say that. Let's get back to the bad boy years, championships in the D. So anyway, let's get back to it.
So I made the decision not to take it. And if I regret any one, maybe that one, but I don't regret it. But there's a Sheryl Crow song that says, it's not getting what you want, it's wanting what you've got. And I've always wanted what I had. I've never, I feel lucky and blessed to have been the coach at Oakland. And it's not like I every day woke up saying, what's my next job? How can I make more money? I had 3 boys that loved it here. Their mother was, she made money. I made money. We had money. It wasn't like we were chasing dreams. Just a really good life. And it would have been hard to walk away from the life, and they loved it. My kids they grew up in the area. One of them still lives here with grandkids, and the other 2 are chasing their dreams now, but we had a great life. So why would you leave that great life to chase something that you really don't need?
Man, it sounds a lot different than a guy who was 28 years old, with his chest out and the peacock feathers going, huh?
For sure.
Okay, well, again, I've known you for a long time, and you're a humble guy, but a very proud guy and a very smart guy. And I can understand, again, the managing your family and being about something bigger than yourself. So that's kudos to you as well on that. Now, listen, we're going to pivot and get into now going forward and NIL and players and again, one season versus building and all kinds of things. But before we do that, we're going to get into a part of the show that's my favorite, Coach. Instead of what do we do? A lot of times people get sick of hearing what do we do. I know it's hard to believe, but they do. So we're going to give everyone a break and they can tune in a little closer now to what Campy do, okay? And this is a part of the show where I'm going to ask you, what would Greg Charles Kampe, go back and tell his 18-year-old self or other 18-year-olds out there today so they can live their best life?
That's a heck of a question. It's a good one, especially for someone that's at my stage of life. I think it's a really, really good question. I think we all, as we get older, we all realize that, life's a team sport. And so much when we're in our youth, like I did at 18 and 20, it was all about me. It was all about me. What can I do? What's going to be best for me? And, if you go back and you look at it and you could, I've said this many times, I wish I could go back and play as a player with all the knowledge I've obtained coaching. And the team is the most important thing in life. It is a team sport in your marriage, with your children, in your office, with your co-workers, with the people you're working with at the grocery store. One of the things that I've really learned to do in the last, say, 5 to 10 years is no matter where I go. I went to a bike shop today to get air in my bike, in my tires, right? Weather's changed, time to exercise. And the guy put the tires in, talked to me a little bit, and when I walked out, I shook his hand and told him I appreciated him. And I've tried, no matter if it's the checkout lady at the grocery store, I order pork chops from the meat counter, I always want to end the conversation with, thank you, I appreciate you, because that's what I've learned over life. I wish I would have known that when I was 18, that life is a team sport, and the more that you do, you don't alienate people against you. You put your arms around them and bring them in. And I've really, really tried to do that in the last 15, 20 years of my career. To me, that's important. It's really, really important. And I don't want to have, in my professional life, I don't want to have any enemies. And that's hard to do in my business. And when, especially when you're competitive and you compete against each other and there's a winner and a loser, and there's a John Calipari walking off the floor knowing that, his job could be in jeopardy. Or Greg Kampe walking off the floor and Tom Izzo just beat him for the 20th time. You don't let that affect your personal skills. And so no matter all the negatives or positives that happen to you, it's about the team of life. And if I could instill that into 18-year-olds, my own 18-year-old self, I think I would have had a lot. From 18 to maybe 40, life would have been a lot better. Although my life's been pretty good. I can't, but it could always be better.
Fantastic, Coach. And so for all those out there listening, he'll say it again or I'll say it for him. How about that? Teamwork makes the dream work. Together, everyone achieves more. Those are the acronyms for team as I know them. And I'll give you a real quick anecdote to that, Coach. So back to this NACAD and the DAC basketball, okay? We travel almost every year to go play somewhere else. Like you said earlier, it was here this year. Well, not once, but twice we were traveling to wherever we were going to play, and I've been blessed to play in 11 of them in my career at the DAC. And not once, but twice we were traveling, we ran into Coach Tom Izzo, like at the airport, randomly, right? And we kind of are blessed to know him a little bit. And I used to be, in my younger self, try to be not necessarily the ringleader, but kind of the corraller of the people. So one time I saw him and I said, Coach, and he said, hi to Dewey and hey to everybody. I said, listen, give me something to give the team. We were going to San Francisco to the Olympic Club. Coach, give me something to give the team that I can tell them at dinner tonight that, Coach Izzo told me this at the airport to give you guys, right? So he did. And he said, Dewey, tell everyone to be a good teammate. Tell everyone to be a good teammate. I think my Draymond Green would have been on his team at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And whatever it was, he just looked at me, you know him, way better than I do, but he said, just tell everyone to be a good teammate. And so I'll never forget that coming from him, that was his word of advice. And prior to that, we had run into Coach who was it? Coach Carr from Michigan on an airplane flying to Fort Worth. So same thing, that was the first one. I said, Coach Carr, what should I tell the team at dinner tonight? And his was play defense, because he was a football guy. So you tell her play defense this weekend. So, anecdote 2 times, but one is that you and Tom Izzo both be good teammates. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's get back on track. We're kind of wrapping up here a little bit, but as we go on to the current state of affairs in college basketball, NIL, building teams forever now. You want to build legacies. You want to get kids from 5th grade, coach them up, keep them, and then you want to have them until they're 50 years old, as part of your family. And I'm teasing 100%. You've said recently that, again, you're lucky. You want to recruit 1 year, have 1-year teams, and that's just the way that the world is in your sport, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, you got a little confused. I don't want to do that. I have to do that. I don't like it. All right, I think it's terrible what's happened. All the people around the athletes tell me I'm wrong. All the people that have the ear of the athletes say you're wrong. This should have always been like this. This is about this. They've got one career, and it goes back to what I just said. When I was that age, I thought that way too, right? It goes back to life is a team sport, and right now, 2 really bad things are happening. We have devalued team. Okay? We've devalued it. The team is not as important. The individual is important. And the second thing that's happening is we have lost the respect for authority. And that's nationwide. That's just not young kids. Go watch Congress, right? Just go watch this episode of Congress and watch them go at each other. In the sanctity of a position, we've devalued that. We've lost the respect of authority on our police, on our politicians. And if it's happening there, it's going to leak down into our children. Those 2 things have to change, okay? Now, I'm not going to change them. I'm too old and nobody's going to listen to me. The youth of today have to change them. So, can I sit here and be the grumpy old grandpa and bitch about what's going on? Or can I be a change agent? Because I still get to coach the youth of today. Now, I have to change. I have to find other ways to get the old message across. If not, I'm going to be like, most coaches in my generation I've had enough. I mean, when Jay Wright leaves, when Roy Williams leave, they didn't leave because they wanted to. They left because they felt they had to. They didn't want to deal with this anymore, all right? So I don't want to leave. I want to keep coaching. And I want to do it for another 5 or 8 years. So I'm not going to be the grumpy old man. I'm not going to be the guy that said, yeah, we used to walk to school 7 miles up in the snow, up both ways upward, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be a guy that can affect the youth. What I have to understand is I'm not going to have teams, I'm not going to have a program. I'm going to have teams. And, we just had an unbelievable season, and everybody left. Trey Townsend went to Arizona, got $500,000. My center went to Washington, got 350, all these numbers. I'm not 100% sure they're true, but I think they are, okay? What am I going to do? I'm not going to change that. So I've got to learn to work around that. I've got to learn to, I've told my players for many, many years, you can't change society until you become part of it, right? You can't change it till you become part of it. So I can't change what's happening now until I become part of it. I can't be on the outside saying, this is awful, I don't want to be. Even though I believe it's not right, I want to be part of it so I can help affect it.
Do you just have a steadfast approach that it's going to be, this system this year with these bigs or these smalls, and you have to change, your plays and your approach to the game? And or along with that, as you're telling them how you run your program, even though it is a team, do you recruit saying, hey, you're going to come here, I'm going to get you so you can go get that next check? Or again, with Goike, I know he was a senior, a grad student from Hillsdale, I think. Is it, hey, I'm going to get you that last shot to go do your thing? So how do you talk to the kids, their parents, and I guess maybe it's case by case, but is there any theme that goes on there?
Yeah, it's no longer a program, and it's not mine now. It's not mine. It's a team, and this is your team. And I tell every one of them, look, I got more rings than I have fingers. I don't need another ring. You need the ring. So this is your team. So how are we going to win? Well, we need to have a few non-negotiables. And then I let the leadership of the team, along with me, come up with what our non-negotiables going to be. And I want to limit those non-negotiables. You know, a perfect example is if we're a team, we all wear the same thing, we all wear the same shoes, we all wear the same socks. You know, we're a team, right? And then Steph Curry goes out and wins the NBA World Championship and the MVP of the NBA Finals wearing purple shoes. Now, every kid wants to wear those purple shoes. I can't sit there and tell them not to wear it. Then I become the old grumpy man, right? So I got rid of all those rules. And the only non-negotiable that I have that's mine is you will be on time, right? Your time is not more important than anybody else's time. You will be on time. That's the only non-negotiable I have anymore. The rest of them, I let the players. It's their team. Yeah, it's my program, but it's their team. And this is their year. And we try and consolidate 4 years into 365 days now. So the rules and what we're trying to do. As far as what you're talking about getting better, that's going to hurt us because we play this goofy zone, matchup zone defense. And the longer you play it, the better you are at it because you read it, you learn it, and things like that. And now I got to reteach it to 8 or 9 new guys every year. It may end up going away because I'm just not sure we can do it. This is going to be a really important year to find out, can a new group, and we're going to have 9 new guys, can a new group of 9 guys play that defense as effective as we played it against Kentucky or North Carolina State, because it was really good in those 2 games. Those are 2 of the highest scoring teams in the country. And, you know, Kentucky had 62 points with 4 minutes to go, and North Carolina State had 66 at the end of regulation. So can we learn to play it in 1 year?
We will see, huh? All right, well, let's give our audience a little snippet, a little something. I know you're still recruiting. I know, again, you have had a few players that have left, as you mentioned, but you've got some new ones coming in, 8 or 9. Maybe that, again, I'm sure there's still things in the works, but is it too early? Can you tell us what you think this next season's going to be like? Any information?
Well, I feel about the same as I felt last year at this time, and that is I think we've got some good players. Got to coach them for a few days to find out. Now, we had Townsend coming back, and we had Lampman coming back, and I didn't think Conway was going to be the player he ended up being. So he was a surprise. But we didn't know how good's DQ Cole, how good's Rocket Watts going to be, how good is Tone Hunter going to be. Is Jack Golke can even play Division I basketball, right? We didn't know that in May of last year. I feel the same way. We've got a kid coming in from Canada, could be better than Jack Golke. It looks like he might be, but until I coach him, I don't know. And we've got twins guards coming in that were 2 of the best shooters in the country in junior college. But will that translate against Division I competition? And we won't know until we've coached them. But I like in the way it's going to be, all right, in this new paradigm of college basketball, where you're going to have all these new players every year. I feel about as good as you can feel with 9 new guys coming in right now. Now, we talk at the end of July, I might say, God, it's going to be a long year, you know. Until I've coached them a few days, it's really, you really can't say.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about it, and we get into July, and then we get into the fall, and see. I'm sure you'll do exceptionally well. You're a heck of a coach and a heck of a guy. And so, on the heck of a guy part, let's spend the next 5 or so minutes that are left talking about your personal life. Let's talk about, again, we have three boys. You mentioned that. Is that right? All boys? 3 boys, and you're a grandfather now, so congratulations on that. But really, let's talk about your charitable work, your community work. It's so important. We actually met. And I've got a picture I'm going to show you after we're done. We met at your golf outing at Oakland Hills pre-COVID. That same Jack Brusewitz brought me along, had me write a check to hang out with you and Coach Izzo and all those other amazing coaches you had there. So coaches versus cancer, coaches beat cancer, all the different coaches against cancer. Let's talk about, again, why it's so important to you and what are you going to have happening here in the next few years as it relates to raising some money.
Well, I think I think that goes to what we talked about earlier. As you get older and the hair gets gray and you get wrinkles around the eyes and you start to reflect back on what you've done. I've been handed this platform, and especially since the Kentucky game, it is what it is. I mean, it's what I say, what I do, people are watching. And so what am I going to do with that platform, right? And the platform, in my opinion, is you got to help, all right? And we all have causes. Every person in the world has a cause. My cause was, the cancer situation. I lost family, friends, close friends, and then I had a really, really close friend pass away from prostate cancer. And so I wanted to do something. And I had said something in the Detroit Free Press about my friend passing away, and I'm going to devote myself to helping the cause for cancer. And 2 days after that was printed in the paper, the American Cancer Society just showed up at my office. Just a lady came walking in and sat down, and what can we do? You can help us. And so I started that event, and we raised, during the event, we've raised close to $1 million. We haven't had the event because the clubhouse burned down at Oakland Hills. But when we're rebuilding it, and once it's rebuilt, we'll be back and have that event. I'll have it at least one more time. The other thing that I've gotten close to is homelessness. Living in Detroit, I actually live in the city. I do a lot of walking. I see what's going on. And while our city is phenomenal, it really is an unbelievable city today. The draft proved that. We still see homelessness as a problem. And I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help the Center of Hope in Pontiac build a new shelter. I'm chairing their committee to raise $7 million to build this new shelter. And I help in the homelessness the most I can. And I still do is basically whatever anybody asks me to do, I'm going to do. I've never said no to anybody, which can be a problem sometimes, but that's who I am and what I'm doing. And anything that I can do to help, I'm going to use this platform. And now that I had a really good platform. Now it's even higher. I don't know how long that'll last. I don't know how long people will remember the NCAA run and your 15 minutes of fame. I'm gonna use every one of those 15 minutes to try and help some cause.
Well, that's great, Coach. And for the audience out there, if you want to learn more about Coach Greg Charles Kampe, you can just Google it or search it wherever. And he is old enough that if you go to ChatGPT or Google's Baird or whatever it is, AI, they will find, the last 3 years, right? If you don't know that, ChatGPT doesn't have the last 2 or 3 years in its algorithms or its database yet, but your last 47 or whatever it is will be there. But I'm kind of kidding, but just go to the, what's the website for Oakland University, ougrizzlies.com?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is, OU Grizzlies?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, just Google search Greg Charles Kampe, and you can learn all about his accolades on the hardwood, but also in the community, and it is amazing. You're an amazing guy, Coach. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to our audience today before we wrap it up?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. It's great to have a conversation, and if anybody hears this and it motivates them to give to a cause, it doesn't have to be my causes, but just give to any cause. And if their hair is turning gray and they're getting wrinkles around, I think they understand what I'm saying. So, and then if anybody young's listening, if you would help in the leadership of what's going to happen in the next 15 or 20 years, we have to turn the tide in valuing team, and we also have to turn the tide in respecting authority. And I think if we can get those two things accomplished, our country will be the strength that it always has been.
Well, amen, Coach. Thank you for that. With that, I'll wrap up the show. Everyone out there listening in Podcast Nation or watching in YouTube land, if you like today's episode, please give us a subscribe, give us a share, give us a follow. As we said all episode long, together, everyone achieves more. And with that, as I always say to wrap up the show, live your best life, be radically generous, a great big booyah to ya. And this is episode 103, the end of season 4, but we're just getting started. Can I get a booyah, Coach? Booyah. All right, my friend.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It's only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risks and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.